Well, folks, come indoors for this one. It's kind of blowing outside anyway. And I'll try to explain this real easy, is that what we're finding out is that after over a year and a half of this YouTube deal, there's another reason why we have a YouTube channel. And just like the YouTube itself, it didn't start off that way. I just showing people how to rope. But as it turns out, because of me being a veteran, I mentioned Agent Orange, and a lady in Australia got a hold of Deb and told her how to get some medicine that might help me with the pain and things like that. And I've been on it 5 months now, and it's working. And I mentioned earlier I was going to share with you about it, and I just was waiting a little longer to make sure everything was straight. And it is. Now, what it's about is that, for those of you that don't know, Agent Orange was a herbicide that was sprayed in Vietnam, supposed to kill the foliage. Well, it did, believe me. And what they do is spray an area that they needed to have aerial reconnaissance. They'd be able to see the ground, or like in my case, I was in artillery. So they'd spray a ridge up in the highlands, and then when the stuff died, they'd burn it down to the ground, and then they'd come in and cut pads with the CBs, and then they'd pull out, and then we'd pull in with cannons, and then we'd set up our cannons and a perimeter and a mortar team, and we got moved around. We were mobile, I guess you call it. And for you veterans, it was called a 1-0 deuce howitzer, and you got to know that a whole lot of things that happened in Vietnam I don't even remember. Who cares why? But the fact is, the veterans I've talked to since Veterans Day, it's the first time in my life that I've actually communicated with veterans, other than my friend in Michigan, who we've talked on the phone, but we haven't seen each other yet. And he and I were together in Vietnam. And Vietnam veterans, I don't know about other wars, but Vietnam veterans, the ones that I know, once they got home, they didn't want anything to do with anything. We came home to a pretty ugly scene, and we just wanted to kind of disappear. I know I did. And I didn't want anything to do with the VA, any other veterans, nothing. And I found out there was a lot of guys like that. Anyway, coming right along to now, 40 years later, we start getting sick with all kinds of different things wrong with us, diabetes, cancer, all these things that have long names. And what I've learned since I talked about it on the YouTube, thanks to all the veterans, is that evidently they changed the ingredients in Agent Orange 3 times, and that's why there's so many different symptoms. And a lot of times none of us figured it out until later on, because like me, I don't have diabetes. And that's the first thing they ask you when they do the Agent Orange check. Well, the fact is, the Agent Orange got my throat. And I'm not trying to run for queen for a day, but I'll tell you what was bothering me in a second. But the Gulf War is another one where there was burning oil fields. And I think the fallout from that got these guys, because I've heard from Gulf War veterans, and for them, it's interestingly enough, it was 20 years after the war, not 40 like us. And I think it's because of another generation, and as children, them being exposed to a lot more chemical things than we were when we were little kids. It's pretty much, we didn't know the term, but at that time it was all natural. So anyway, and the other one is the Navajo Nation, because of all the uranium and the mines up there, they have had non-stop cancer, diabetes, all kinds of problems, medical problems, and a lot of them are connected to what we did to them, and a lot of them are connected to the chemicals in the ground. So this may help some of my friends up on the res too. But Dow and Monsanto are the 2 major culprits in this deal, incidentally. Now what I want to tell you is what I've been taking is this bottle, and it's ASEA Redox. And the part that it dawned on me after 4 months It says cell signaling supplement. All right, you probably figured out by now I'm no genius, but what it did was my throat, one side of the epiglottis didn't work because the cells were dead. And that's why I choke so much and I don't breathe well. Well, I've noticed a big difference in 4 months, 5 months, that I don't choke as much. Okay, that's a big thing for me, because when you really get into choking, and I've talked to other veterans that have this exact same thing, it can get pretty painful at times. And what you got to know, as far as I can tell so far, this doesn't cure Agent Orange. It doesn't absolutely cure it so far. What it did was take away a lot of the pain, and it started breaking down the problems, percentages. In other words, I had 100% neuropathy from the knees down and in my hands. Well, I'm going to tell you that 25% of that's gone now. My feet actually get cold now. They don't feel like they're on fire at night. And I can feel stuff with my hands. I used to be able to pick up pretty hot metal and didn't even know it. But so the neuropathy and the choking and then cluster headaches. And the reason I'm saying all this stuff is because there's other veterans out there that this is going to ring a bell with, because there's so many symptoms. Cluster headaches, you can imagine what those are. I had those quite a bit, and now I'm down to maybe 2 a week. And that's a real good deal because of sleep deprivation. You get them at 3 in the morning usually. Right leg, you probably noticed I'm gimpy. I've had 2 hip replacements on the right side, and when the first one I went septic, and I was out in Nevada, and I was a long ways from town, 90 miles actually. And by the time I got to the VA in Reno, I was septic, and they put me on an ice blanket, and I went from there. But what I want to tell you is that they cut on me 6 times, 6 different operations, and all the muscle was cut up in my leg from the knee to my hip. And I haven't had feeling in my right leg from the knee up since 2009. Well, now I can feel that. And for a while, I'd get smacked, and I just keep right on going. And it's not it's not that you're tough, you just don't feel it. So I'm starting to feel that now. That may not be good news, but I'm telling you, I'm getting feeling in my right leg. And then the breathing is not my lungs, it's my throat. And the breathing is getting better. I'm going to tell you that. It's about 10% better. And I can feel it. And the tinnitus, because being an artillery, everybody knows you're deaf in a post when you get done. Hasn't done a thing for that. But the other things, I'm happy enough about it to share it with everybody, because I think it's important. Because we don't need to be handed pills that are addictive. We need something that'll help us, and that's what this did for me. Now, I'll touch on the PTSD. For those of you that suffered from it, I'll let you know that drinking this medicine, what it did was just gave me a better frame of mind. I'm not so mad anymore, because I can see some daylight at the end of the tunnel. And that's all I got to say about that. Now, the math works out. It's $130 a month for a month's worth of liquid, and I go through about a bottle a week, and tastes like dishwater. But the good news is there's no aftertaste, and there's no side effects. So I committed to a 6-month regimen. In other words, you get entered up and you do it. Let the tail go with the hide. Go in for the whole deal. And that's what I'm doing, and I'm glad I've done it. So Deb's going to put up the info on the screen about all the technical side of how to find them and all that. And what I would suggest you do is that you look it up and get your wife or your grandkids to do the detective work on the computer, and then you decide. I'm just telling you it worked for me, and it's not snake oil. And then once you've read it, go from there. And then there's been people got a hold of us, which I really, really appreciate, because it doesn't matter why, but it just makes you feel good to know that there's people that aren't veterans that said they'd love to help. Well, down the road, here's my suggestion. Everybody's got some kind of kin or knows somebody that's a Vietnam veteran. And if he's on hard times, because see, it's not none of my business to go poking into somebody's financial world. But if you know a veteran, you tell him about this. And if he's on hard times, then you can sponsor him. That's what you can do to pay it forward. And I know that all of us will appreciate it. And please understand that there's not a dime going to me. It's not like Tupperware or Avon or all that stuff. I'm not selling it. I'm not going to touch it other than take it. I want you to hunt it up and decide if you want it or not. And there'll be no money coming to me, or I'm not a rep. I don't get the little pin for whatever you do. So that isn't going to happen. I'm just giving you the option of seeking it out if you want to. So good luck, and if you got any questions, just send me a letter deal, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you.